Swanee, God has smiled on the Gators, no question about it.
Alrighty, Gator fans. I've tried to record the intro this is about my third time and it did not work. So hopefully things will work better this time. I wanted to talk to you guys about the Jon Sumrall, era so far. It hasn't really gotten started yet. You'll get more information from the spring game. But I wanted to talk about how Florida fans have kind of done a 180 from the time he has been hired to now. At first, we were against really the hiring because we were coming off of the Billy Napier era. We didn't want to, have another group of five coach come in. But now it seems like now that we've had time to accept that he's the head coach, we're kind of like now we're almost excited to see what he's going to do this year. I mean, granted, when you have a new head coach hiring, you're always going to hope will always eventually come over time. But are we really buying into the right things and seeing the right positive signs with Jon Sumrall, or is that we're drinking so much of the Kool-Aid because we were so fed up with what we had with Billy Napier last year that almost anything that he does opposite of Billy Napier, we're automatically taking that as like a W or like a big win or like a big change. And that's what I'm going to talk about here. So Jon Sumrall is nearing his very first spring game as the Gators head football coach. When the hire was official, some UF fans were skeptical, myself included, and some fans were just flat out against the move. Florida had just fired Billy Napier and were losers of the Lane Kiffin sweepstakes to the Bayou rivals LSU. After a miserable run with Napier, Florida fans, for the most part, were unwilling to hear the news of another group of five coach out of the state of Louisiana coming to Gainesville. In fairness, I don't believe a G5 hire is automatically a bad hire, but as UF fans, you're hoping for a guy with great Power 4 experience and familiarity in the Southeastern region. Now, in Jon Sumrall's defense, I think you can argue that he has that. He was the head coach at Troy, which is in the state of Alabama. He went to Tulane, where that's in Louisiana. He coached and played at Kentucky. So he's familiar with the SEC culture, I think. And him coaching the group of five gives you a guy that's been a head coach at different places rather than Billy Napier, who was the head coach at one place in Louisiana and then made a big leap. So you could argue his rise to being the Florida coach was more of a slow, gradual build than Billy Napier was, who just skyrocketed to the top immediately. Now, whether to the chagrin or the delight of the Gator faithful, depending upon who you asked at that time, Sumrall became the new man in charge. And what you immediately noticed about him was that it was a complete 180 in his intense, loud, but passionate temperament compared to the soft-spoken, mild-mannered nature of Billy Napier. When it comes to Jon Sumrall, when he's at the podium and he's doing his press conferences, I can hear him all the way out in Broward County without having to listen online, while Billy Napier's speeches needed subtitles. Not that Billy Napier couldn't speak, it's just that he was, we're talking about the players and, and the process and the building, like things like that, like very monotone, kind of as if he's making sure he's trying to say the right thing instead of just speaking truly from his heart and, re-emphasizing the message over and over and over again, rather than a coach who you could tell like he's not going off on a script. He's going off of his own mindset and like I said, speaking from internally from the heart. While it's refreshing to hear some fire from a coach that isn't shy about his hatred for failure, Jon Sumrall has said it many, many times again. I hate losing. I don't like losing. I don't want to lose. I want to win immediately as soon at any job that I take, at any football team that I'm coaching at. I am trying to win right away. I don't believe in 2 or 3 year rebuilds. I believe that you can win right now if you put the right things in place and you get the right message out. We've heard him say that time and time again. And UF football account on YouTube just uploaded a video of what the gauntlet was that the players are doing before they start spring practice. And you can hear the same message being translated throughout the team. And having a goal in place, which is what Jon Sumrall wants to do, is win immediately, it's merely daydreaming if you don't have plans to follow that goal. And the first goal he set was to retain some of US's best playmakers on offense and defense: Jaden Ball, Dallas Wilson, Vernell Brown, Amir Jackson, Jada Woods, Bryce Thornton, Dejon Johnson, Miles Graham, Aaron Childs, Jaden Robinson, Kermani McClain are examples of guys that he brought back to the team, that he knew were the core of the team and the leaders of the team and had been through the rough years. And he knew that retaining these guys would make 2026 a brighter note for Florida, and he knew that he needed those guys to come back to help, the team for years beyond their their collegiate eligibilities. While bringing back the core of a 4-8 team may sound bad theoretically, for a new coach that's trying to implement his message, it may benefit from a motivated unit that wants to make amends for a 4-8 season. Florida is bringing back over 75% of returning production defensively, which is by far the most in the SEC. Another positive sign is the staff. It was expected that Jon Sumrall would bring his Tulane assistants out with him, but he made sure to outsource with veteran coordinators that make his transition much easier. Buster Faulkner, who's been talked about enough as the offensive coordinator for Florida, and Brad White, who was the defensive coordinator under Mark Stoops in Kentucky the last 3 years. He brought in other veteran position coaches: Phil Trotwine, former Florida Gator, at the offensive line, and he coached at Penn State for a long time. Marcus Davis, who was a wide receiver coach from Auburn previously. Chris Foster from Duke to coach the running backs. So he didn't just put his Tulane assistants at coordinator positions or at big time position. He made sure to get veteran guys at the right spots: the O-line, the running back, the wide receiver. He made sure to have those guys there at those important positions to help build up the quarterback spot for Buster Faulkner. And, he also brought back Joe Chapman, who knows the defensive line very well, and he knows the right temperament that Joe Chapman can bring to the D lineman at Florida. Plus, I think they worked together at Tulane, so he understood what that guy what Jared Chapman brings to the table, and Jared Chapman, I'm sure, knows what Jon Sumrall wants for his program. So it was an easy marriage there for the defensive line coaching position. Now, these gentlemen are expected to bring a standard of accountability and discipline that was developed through their careers to the players. Now the question is this: as I said before, are we just so desperate to see a win that any little sign that we're taking it and we're running to the hills with it, and we're overhyping it and over celebrating it? Because the standards were high for Billy Napier, and they're high for Jon Sumrall too. But Billy Napier did such a bad job of even getting close to those standards, let alone actually meeting it, that so many things that Jon Sumrall could do in year one, he could achieve multiple milestones in year one that Billy Napier didn't in 4 seasons. As I said earlier, Napier and Sumrall are complete opposites in their demeanor and their approachability in the media interactions, their competitiveness, and their attitudes. A 7 or 8 win season for Sumrall could be overhyped and over-celebrated, as I said, and Florida will have a much tougher 2027 schedule than they will this year, because they don't have Alabama, A&M, LSU, Tennessee, along with Georgia this year. They have those guys for next year. And next year, Florida State will probably have a different coach, so there's a good chance they can be much better just based off of that alone. So I think while we're excited to see what he's going to do in year one, I think as Florida fans, we should maybe temper our excitement and expectations, because I think 2027 will be a true indicator of the kind of coach Jon Sumrall is, and is he the right man for the job? And certainly for Scott Strickland, you're hoping he's the right man for the job, because you're more than likely on the way out if you fail with this hire. Now, as far as the schedulers go, when I was talking about how the 7 or 8 win season could be overhyped and over-celebrated, it's because Billy Napier did such a poor job. He never had a regular season where he won more than 7 games at Florida, that if Jon Sumrall were to go 8 wins, every Florida fan's going to look at it and be like, oh my goodness, we have a coach that won 8 games when it really should be like the standard at Florida, that an 8-4 season, respectable but not good enough. Because of Billy Napier, we're now hoping and praying at least for an 8-win season so we can finally, have something have a football season that we can enjoy. Because Billy Napier's best year at Florida was 7-5. And even with that 7-5, there was a lot of bad teams he had to beat just to do that. So we'll see how things are going to go with Jon Sumrall. The spring game is coming up in about 10 days on April the 11th. I hope to be there on Saturday, and I would like to be there the day before just so I can, see if I can meet some Gator fans that I've interacted with online. But there's a very good chance that I'll have to show up on that very Saturday, and I won't be in there the day before, but I'm excited to see what they're going to look like at the spring game. I'll make sure to do a list of players that I'm excited to see who's going to compete where and who's going to, which team this player is on and who am I looking for the most to show out in the spring game. So thank you for listening.